What's happening, everyone? Welcome to the West Ham Fan TV podcast episode. What episode is this, Dan? 13.
Maybe. Yeah. Let's go with that. We need to start counting this, you know.
I know. It's stupid, isn't it? Yeah. How you doing, mate? How you been? You getting crazy yet?
Yeah. Just about. I mean, I've had to pop out and I've had to go out and get stuff from my nan and granddad and stuff like that. So I've got a bit of fresh air. But I've been working from home as a lot of people have, and
it's crazy out there, isn't it, in a minute?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is, mate. It really is. Be glad when it's all over.
Well, I think it is now 8:10. So in 20 minutes, we're going to have some sort of announcement, which I would imagine is going to be some sort of lockdown. So we're in it for the long haul yet, mate. We've got a guest today. Dan, I'm going to let you introduce him because you might be a little bit familiar with him.
Yeah, I think I know this bloke a bit. You know, he's gone and named himself after me. He's obviously one of my bigger fans on Twitter, and he's.
Let's get Come on.
Yeah, he is my older cousin here, Matt Lawless. Some of you might know him as the head of sport at the Mirror, right, Matt? That's right. I haven't messed that up. Is it more flowery title than that?
That's right. Yeah, head of sport. That's looking after the Mirror, the Star, and Express online. So yeah.
But more importantly than that, lifelong West Ham fan, mate.
Yes. Yeah. Well, look, I say lifelong. I mean, of course, I absolutely love West Ham. Everybody knows that. I actually really loved Nottingham Forest when I was a kid. And the story behind that is that we played Forest in the semi-final.
Yeah.
And I think I was 5 at the time, 91. And Uncle Kevin, of course, he couldn't get me a West Ham shirt. The only shirt you could get in the kids' size that day was Nottingham Forest one. So that was the year that Forest lost, of course, in the final to Tottenham, sadly. But I love Forest in terms of, I love that shirt.
And I ended up getting that shirt as a hand-me-down, probably when you stopped supporting them.
I'm not surprised. And I think the story was that Dad said to me, look, you're never, ever going to go and see Nottingham Forest play, so you support West Ham. So,
that was like me with Newcastle, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, that's it. And I think so from about 6, 7 years old, I've always been a West Ham fan, and I was lucky enough when I was younger. It sounds a bit like Jay from the In-Betweeners here, but I had a trial with West Ham, I really enjoyed that. And unfortunately,
as a goalkeeper.
That's right. Yeah, as a goalkeeper, they realised I was about 2 foot tall. They're never quite going to make it, but there's a good video.
How old are you now, Matt?
I'm 33. I had to think about that, mate. I feel like I've been in quarantine for 33 days, but yeah.
I bet you're still better than Roberto.
Yeah, I think 33 as well. But
you know what? If they would have just kept you, right? If they would have signed you back then, kept you in the reserves for like all of these years, 15 years, and then when Fabianski got injured, brought you out in, we'd probably have a few more points on the board than if they'd have brought Roberto.
Actually, I used to play against David Martin. So I was the goalkeeper for Barking and Dagenham, and he was the goalkeeper for Havering District. I used to wear a West Ham shirt then in goal, and David Martin was definitely better. He really I mean, he was training from from the West Ham staff and things like that, but he was quality even back then. So it's great to see him make his debut this year.
Yeah, I mean, I like David Martin a lot. He's a likable guy. You see them videos of him, even when he's not even on the bench, and he's in the back and he's smacking hands with everyone as they come off the pitch. And
it just means everything to him. Anybody who's ever met Alvin Martin will tell you how much he loves West Ham. And he really does. He's a fantastic guy actually. And David, he's chip off the old block, and to represent West Ham just means the world to him. So it was great. I mean, that's for us. I mean, it's been a tough old season, but when we beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, the scenes after the game, I mean, it'd bring tears to a glass eye, wouldn't it? It was so good.
Mate. I was there, and it was just like non-stop singing about David Martin.
Goal. We got that's one of the chances of the season. For
me. When he made that mistake, I was heartbroken for him.
Yeah.
So bad.
But you know what I've heard about? Because our mate Nick Tucker, Nick, Matt, he's sitting near him.
He's in front of me and Dan.
Yeah.
He knows Alvin Martin a little bit, and he said to me that when Martin came into the side after all them mistakes by Roberto, Alvin was so nervous because he was just worried about a mistake from Martin, just, you know, the way the crowd would take him and all of that sort of thing. And he was saying that, you know, coming up to his debut, he knew he was going to be making his debut at, was it Chelsea?
Stamford Bridge, yeah.
He knew he was going to be making, and he was so nervous. He said he was throwing up in the night, waking up in the night, just because he knows how much he means to the West Ham fans, and the West Ham fans mean to him. But when it comes to your child, obviously, you don't want to be seeing, you know, your kid getting abused by the people that love you. So he was so nervous. So he was like, all them scenes where you see him going up and cuddling him, I think that was more relief than anything else for Alvin. Yeah,
you could definitely sense that, and I think for them it was just. I think the whole transfer, when it happened, everyone was a bit like, why have we signed David Martin? You know, he's just been released from Millwall. And everybody had this idea, this sort of, you know, there was the talk that he was on a training ground contract only, which is nonsense. I've never heard of such a contract. But I'm sure in theory, you know, that's why he was brought in as a third choice. But for him to get his chance, I mean, probably nobody ever saw it coming. And I guess, like you say, it was just pure relief in the end that, you know, the magnificent game and the team won.
Yeah, seems like a lifetime ago, mate.
Mate.
It really does.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Mirror, mate. I mean, how long you been at the Mirror now?
4 years, actually. Yeah, 4 years this week. I mean, I've been lucky. I started in journalism when I was 15. I started at the Sunday Telegraph. I just had work experience when I was about year 10, and I was very fortunate. And then I had a boss who was willing to take a chance on me. And after 2 weeks, he said, "Do you want to have a Saturday job?" And you know, I sort of snapped his hand off at the chance, really. It was brilliant. I worked at Canary Wharf. I was getting paid a decent little wage to go in every Saturday. I had to give my season ticket up that year, so I was a bit gutted about that. But the boss was really generous, and he made sure that I was always looked after whenever, like, if a ticket offer come up and things like that. So it was great. And then from there, I went to university. I lived in Manchester. And I was there when we completed the Great Escape. That was my final year at university. And then while I was at uni, I was covering games like places like Bury, Rochdale, Oldham, the coldest place in the world, Everton, you know, Man United, England were on the road then. So it was great. And then I came back and was at the Telegraph for about another year. And then I left. I went to the Mail. And I was at the Daily Mail, really working for online and the newspaper for about 7 or 8 years, I think, before I left for the Mirror. And I had a fantastic boss there. Probably, yeah, for me.
Another well-known West Ham fan, right?
Yeah, Lee Clayton. Everybody knows him. You know, he's a wonderful man. He's at TalkSport now. He does a column in the programme. So, yeah, I mean, I was very lucky to work for Lee, and we still keep in touch today. But I had an opportunity to go to the Mirror, and it was a chance really to become the boss, and that's what I wanted at the time. So, and things since then have been really good, and the Mirror have been a great place to work. And you know, I know newspapers get a lot of flack, but what I will say about the Mirror is they've got the people's interest at heart, and they do campaign about things that are right. And as an editor, I will always say that, look, I know that things get reported that aren't often true or factual, and that's not something that I ever push. I always look for, you know, accuracy. I want fans to feel that they can trust in what they're seeing with us. And you get this term, clickbait, comes up a lot, and you know, that's something that, you know, anybody who knows me would say, look, you definitely don't want to do stuff like that, because I always think of the reader. I'm a reader. I think of myself as a normal person, really. So I don't like to con anyone, or as we say, let's not pull anyone's pants down. We don't want to leave people red-faced. So whatever we report, the opinions that we try and put out is, for us, you know, always factual. And then if it transpires that it's not true, then unfortunately something's happened in between. It's happened quite a lot of times, you know. There's things where I've seen in the past where I've seen contracts been signed from players or managers, and it just didn't happen, you know. And that's the game. I think more and more people are wise to that now, though, which is, you know, thanks to social media. I think, you know, we all follow a lot of accounts on there, and I think they do a fantastic job with West Ham. But I've seen it firsthand where you can put a story out there and people just give you so much shit straight away, and you're like, I don't need this, that's not what I'm here to do, really. I'm here to just to inform people. And
I bet you get a lot of that on transfers. If you're saying maybe the top player for their team is linked with someone else, another team, that's where you must really get because people are, if you're reporting stuff that people don't want to hear, that must be where you really get it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people just think we just put in a couple of names and click the random generator and hey presto, there's a story. It doesn't work like that. Our stories are often that they come from good sources, often double sourced. They might come from players, managers, agents, whatever. But what we report, we genuinely believe in.
And you remember you had all the Sterling stuff, and I don't think you guys was the ones doing that. It weren't you guys. But the fact of it's been reported by like a tabloid, it sort of seemed to end up like all of journalism seemed to get a bad name for it. What was the sort of view in the industry when these stories are getting more attention and more backlash and all of that Sterling stuff?
Quite simple, really. I think unfortunately, I work with a great guy called Darren Lewis, and if Darren Lewis is saying to me there's a problem, then I believe him, and we have to take people, and their opinions for what it is. And I think there is a problem in the industry. I think we do have to look at ourselves. We have to diversify a lot more where we can, and we have to offer more opportunities. But we also have to make sure that when we're reporting about players and footballers in general, we do have to be fair. And I always believe in that. They're human beings after all. Just like me, they're just going to try and nick a living, and they're lucky to do something that they love. I'm lucky to do something that I enjoy. I get to speak about sport and football. That's my job. It's fantastic, and they're in the limelight. Some of them, make mistakes. They do. Some of them are really poorly advised. Some of them are brilliant, and I don't think it's fair to say all footballers are sort of bad and that they flaunt their cash and things like that. I think if many of us were sort of flush with money, then I'm sure we'd be driving around in souped up Range Rovers and all this, that, and the other. But whatever they've got, good luck to them. That's what
I'll be honest with you, Matt. I've always found that a little bit sort of what's the word? I felt that I think that's a little bit unfair for footballers, because at the end of the day, look, we all know that especially at this time. What we're going through at the moment, it's been highlighted that maybe sort of nurses and doctors and things don't get paid enough money, and it's for the service they provide, and then it always comes down to the comparison, doesn't it? I heard it the other day. I think a tabloid put it the other day, that these nurses and that are working 48-hour shifts, and these footballers haven't done a stroke of work for so long, and they've earned so many £billion in wages or whatever. But I've always found that a bit unfair, because if you are getting paid that money, why shouldn't you spend it? Do you know what I mean? Like if like Joe Bloggs in the street was getting 200 grand a week, would they be expecting him to still be driving around in his old Ford Focus or his old? Do you know what I mean? Though, like if you've got that money, why wouldn't you spend it? Say that again. Sorry, mate.
I said I'll drive a full Focus, so
there's nothing wrong with a full Focus. I'm just making a comparison. I've driven many a full Focus myself.
No, but I think that's really right, Nick. I think it's one of them where actually, if you look at this particular crisis that we're going through, these unprecedented times, footballers actually, there's many who are making sacrifices, and there's a lot who are trying to not just donate their money, but also to raise awareness. And that's so important at the minute, that they're using their power for good and their influence for good. And that's what I like to see. There's so many who are trying to spread the right word, and I think fair play. And it's been one of those times where it's put a lot of things into perspective. And for me, I don't think any footballers come out of this looking bad at all. I think it shows that footballers are human. None of them are going around saying, "Oh, we deserve more money" and all this, that, and the other. Not that I've heard. And I think, if any of them, I'm sure most of them actually know nurses, they know doctors, they know people who work in shops, because often footballers come from working class backgrounds like ourselves,
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, what I think the players that end up really getting the stick is England players. If you look traditionally over the years, and I've had this conversation with quite a few, even a lot of people point to the fact of, if you go to other countries, maybe like some South American countries or Germany, something like that, the national team is revered in the press and by the fans, but there always seems to be a bit of a different narrative here. It's like coming up to a tournament, it's built up. They're gods, and then in between, they're slated. And it's a weird one. I don't know what it is. It's whether it's the culture of the country or what. Why we don't have that same reverence for the national team.
I think that changed, though, to be honest, Dan. I think when you look back at the last World Cup, I actually did an interview, funny enough, for Copper 90. They did a documentary prior to the World Cup. And I started. I said, listen, we want the England team to win. I'm English. I want England to win. I want them to win every game. I want to support, and I was very clear about that. And I think actually when you look at the reportage of it, and I think you remember the feel-good factor of that particular tournament, everybody was united behind the team. And I think the World Cup in 2018 changed the game for England players. And I think you look at England players now, they are revered. And I don't think there are many that get any flack at all. I mean, and if they do, then, that's not really that. There's no agenda, not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Do you know what? It sounds a bit hypocritical for me, because after that one, it's like I felt they were over built up, overhyped after that one. Yeah. When you look at it, I was like, because a lot of people were like saying that, and obviously Kane got a knighthood and all of that, or whatever he got. Well, not a knighthood. What's the other one? The one OB.
Yeah.
Step down. Do you know what I mean? And I'm thinking, wow, we had the easiest run ever. And we didn't beat anyone at good, and Kane got one of the worst Golden Boot players ever.
Yeah, but
Golden Boot winners.
You're the most cynical man I know.
No, but if you look at it, if you just look at it on a step by step, we've had better performances, and I can see what you're saying now, because it was like a shift, because to me where. Like, I was really critical myself after. I mean, it was a great moment, like the atmosphere, how it made the country feel. It was brilliant. But when you look at our run and our results and who we played, I was like, yeah. And so that makes sense what you're saying about the shift there. So, nice. It is interesting. But, I think there's a culture in the country. I think where it comes from is we're very... We love a moan, don't we, the Brits? We love a good moan. And I think that's where it feeds up.
If it's not Brexit, if it's not VAR, it's coronavirus, who knows what's next? You know what I mean? So,
it's in our culture. We love a good moan,
So what's it like at the Mirror at the minute, mate? With pretty much all sports shut down.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, Nick. I went into self-isolation about 3 weeks ago now. Not because anything was wrong with me, absolutely fine, but we knew. I think everybody could see where this was going, and we needed to see if we could operate remotely. And it's been a really testing time for everybody. There are still people working in the office, but effectively most of our workforce is remote at the moment. So for me, you're spending a lot of time on conference calls like this, or you're chatting to people and making sure that we can get the website up and making sure that what we're getting out there is factual and things like that. So,
how difficult is it story-wise, like content and having stories when obviously like all the sports shut down?
So actually, do you know what? At the minute, it's not too bad, because there's still an appetite. There's still an appetite from fans about what's going on at their club. I think there's enough content at the minute with news. There's been so many cancellations, postponements. People are still wondering what's going to happen next. And I think our report has been excellent, actually. People like John Cross, if you're not following him, you should, because he's all over every story. At a minute for the Mirror, it's great. Lots of them. But for us, it's about how can we keep things moving, and how can we keep our readers informed about their clubs and the players that they like to watch and big sporting events that are coming up. So for us at the minute, it's okay. But what I would liken it to is like an international break, where not an awful lot is happening, but there's still enough to turn the dial.
What I want to know is, and I'm dying to know, and you might be able to answer this, is how is there transfer news stories going on when we're in this whole situation? Because I can't imagine, if the manager's still getting on the phone and negotiating with agents and Or what? Are they still?
I don't think it would be to that extreme, but conversations about transfers happen long before the season finishes anyway. So,
I just wondered if it would affect that though, because of the quarantine and isolation. If they're not,
I think it works both ways, really. I think there'll be players who are frightened and they want to leave particular places where they are. They might use this period as a time of evaluation and say, actually, I'm not happy at this club and I want to move. Obviously you do get dribs and drabs filtered through, be it through players or through agents, managers, like I said earlier, really. So there's still enough, and there are transfer stories going on even to this day. I mean, I can't tell you one, but there's a couple that might be in the paper later. Look out. There's still a few big players that want to go on the move. I mean, West Ham wise, Paul Brown in the Daily Star reported this morning on Monday that David Moyes wants to buy British, wants to build a British core around the team, which is interesting to hear. He likes Josh Cullen, who's had a successful loan stint out of Charlton. He likes Grady Diogano, who's done particularly well at West Brom this year. He's pretty much, if the season does finish, which they've said it will, looks like he'll get them promoted. So there's some good young players, and I think when you look at, he might have been forced to play Ngakia, but he's been fantastic. And a friend of mine who watches reserve games said to me about 2 months before, watch this kid. He said he is fantastic. And, he's been on the radar for a while. So, yeah, I think...
to be fair, I think Ngakia is such an important position, Matt, because I think it's a position we've scrimped and scraped on over the last 10 years, and it's such an important position now in the modern game.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're absolutely right there. When you look at like Liverpool and Man City, why are they at the top? Because they identified the key positions that they needed to fill. Goalkeeper was one, all right? And they've probably got, all right, Edison had a bit of a rig against Man United, but can't say too many times that he's been poor. He hasn't really been tested, some might argue, but I think he's a quality keeper. Alisson for Liverpool changed Liverpool completely. He's the difference for them winning the title, as is Virgil van Dijk. Then you've got the wing-backs. Pep Guardiola, his first season, didn't win a thing. Brings in 2 wing-backs, changes Man City. And that's what you're saying, really, is the game is revolutionised now, where the wing-backs are so key to our teams can play. And I think when I look back at West Ham teams and the teams that I admired over the years, we always had fast players, or we like to do that overlap, and I used to love the overlap, the wing back and the winger. And when you think of players like Matty Everton, even like Stan Lazaridis, going back that far, and further than that, we've always had players like that. So I think based on how the modern game is, those are positions that you're right, we do need to fill. And I think left back's been a massive area of concern for us. I like Cresswell a lot. I can see him actually tucking into a defensive 3, if you like. But we need someone who can attack up and down, but also get back. Masuaku, he gets a lot of stick. He can actually play as a left winger, but he can't defend the boy, But right back wise, I think what I've seen of Ngakia over the last few games, he looks a real promise. And Ben Johnson as well. He's had a bit of an injury, but he's highly rated, and I think he's another one that.
Such a shame about his injury. He would have got a lot of game time, I think, in this season if he'd have been fit.
I think there's because he can play. He can actually play left back as well. I think.
Yeah, Southampton taken to West Brom.
Interesting.
Yeah, he did, and so that's how highly he's rated. He really is.
Interesting. Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see what happens next season. Well, whenever that picks up. I mean, another journalist, that Henry Winter, was saying it's madness to think that it's going to start anytime before October, which.
Who knows? I mean, that's the thing at the minute. None of us know, do we?
Yeah, exactly. So,
next month.
At least all our players will be fit again, won't they? Like, do you know what I was thinking? Do you know what I was thinking today, right, about this? Because we've had all this time out. I was wondering, will Jack Wilshere be fit by the time football comes back? If it came back even in August or something.
Right? He's working hard. I've spoken to people who know Jack well, and he's working hard. And he's been really unlucky, and I think. He's just one of those players that just hasn't quite worked out for him. Like Andy Carroll was the same. And all right, there might be questions about their lifestyle and things like that. But from what I know, I've heard only good things for Jack Wilshere. So I hope that he can get fit again. He's only 27, I think. So
yeah, he's young. Such a shame.
And I think
he's with him. He's such a talent, isn't he? That's the problem.
I mean, he absolutely had Barcelona in his pocket, didn't he? A few years ago when he was playing for Arsenal Champions League. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, Arsenal fans were thinking that they've got the next world class, legendary talent there, and sadly, like injuries.
He would have been their captain. That's how much they loved him at Arsenal. But I think the right decision was made when you look at it. And for us, unfortunately, he hasn't had a rub of green.
Yeah. Oh, it's official, guys. Britain's going into lockdown.
Yeah.
He's announced it. Mandatory lockdown.
What does that mean?
Yeah. That's I guess all non-essential businesses will have to shut down, and I don't know what that means for going out and getting your shopping or whatever. But, geez,
I think the face of it is the sensible thing to do. But when you think back, it was only a few weeks ago they were prepared to play Premier League football, and we would have played against Wolves had Mikel Arteta not been tested positive for coronavirus. I am 100% certain football would have been played that weekend.
Yeah.
How ludicrous the situation has been, really.
Yeah. They were they didn't have a clue, mate. Like I said, it was literally like 15 minutes before the Arteta announcement came out. They was like, yep, football as normal. Fans can go to the games. All good. And then Arteta gets it. It's like, oh, shit, we're having a meeting in the morning. Like, jeez.
And that was really sort of, and obviously Hudson-Odoi, he was struck down by it as well.
Yeah.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back. But even that week, thousands upon thousands, probably about 250,000 people went to Cheltenham. I mean,
and
I was invited. I opted not to go.
Everybody
I know that has been fine, but still, you look at it and you think, Jesus, what's going on here? So
it just takes one person to have it, doesn't it, and turn up.
Yeah. In terms of football clubs, what they're doing at the minute, no Premier League club is training at the moment. I think Sheffield United were the last ones.
Weren't we supposed to be back today training, or did that get stopped?
Yeah, it's been changed. All the players have got their own personal fitness plans.
Yeah, I see. Felipe Anderson's got a big in his flat. I think it's in Canary. I think he lives in Canary Wharf.
I think quite a few of the players.
They're all in the same block.
Yeah, quite a few are based there, and obviously, like the players who have sort of been around the club a lot more, sort of live further out in Essex or in London and stuff like that. So,
yeah. He's got his whole thing going up.
Yeah, they're all working on individual plans. Obviously, I'm sure they're desperate to play football. But when you look at it, I mean, who knows when we're going to be back? But when we are back, like you mentioned with injuries, we've got some key players who will be available again, and that's going to help us big time.
Yeah, definitely.
I was watching Sunday Supplement yesterday. Well, I say I was watching it. I didn't really watch too much of it. I watched little bits and pieces of it. And there was a guy in there. I can't remember his name off the top of my head at the minute. That reckons this might be good for football in the long run. Can you see any good that comes out of this, Matt?
At the moment, it's difficult to say yes because you look at the situation and. The country's on lockdown. People are dying. So to identify good stuff is difficult. I have just said that there will be positives for West Ham and for other teams. I think yes, there will be, but in the grand scheme of things, of course not. But I guess if we're going back to assuming things are sort of back to a normal state, then you'd say yes. If you look at Spurs, when we would have played Spurs the other week on Friday, I think we would have beaten Tottenham that night. And now I think we played Tottenham when things are all, back to hopefully normal again. They'll probably be the favourites because they'll have their big players back again. So that's what has changed. But from a West Ham point of view, it does kind of help us press the reset button. There's been a lot of issues, to contend with this season, and I hope that once we get through this initial phase of things, that there will be a thought process behind how are we going to move this club forward? What can we do that's going to take West Ham to the next level? How are we going to get our
and say that word, the next level?
Sorry, that's but that's what the conversation needs to be about, really. It needs to be a period for reflection and a period where we can, like I say, press the reset button and go again.
Yes, do you think, I mean, in terms of West Ham, I can see what you're saying, but do you think it might sort of kick a few people at the top of the game to make them realise how important fans actually are, because they know from a broadcasting point of view, and I suppose this goes across all of the industry really, is that if they start playing these games behind closed doors, there isn't going to be as much interest across the world. You know, everyone that supports Man United are going to watch Man United games. Everyone support, and obviously in terms of that, but the fans make the game. The fans make the game, and I think that was being a little bit lost within the money and all of this sort of thing. And they've just realised, you know, because the fans can't attend the games, they're calling the games off, and you've got. You know, somebody told me the other day privately that West Ham, if the season don't get restarted again with fans, they're in turn to lose like up to £40 million for the last 9 games because of, you know, obviously sponsorships and all of that sort of thing. Do you think it might take someone to reflect and turn around and say, you know what, let's treat these a little bit better because we really just don't want to lose these?
I hope so, mate. I mean, when you looked at like games that were behind closed doors, Man United played last, the Austrian team. Pointless, soulless game. I mean, on paper, what a win for Man United, but it was completely, you know, null and void in a way because no one was there to cheer a goal. You know, and it was. I think we've seen with other sports that we've seen behind closed doors. It's just soul destroying, really. And
it's like pre-season friendly, yeah.
Yeah, it's meaningless. And I think from our point of view, fans, we're at the heart and soul of the game. We're why there's a sort of, you know, supply and demand of it, like, you know, this is why the Premier League's been taken into a different stratosphere because of the interest that you mentioned, not just from the UK, but from across the world. And I hope that, you know, also what we have to remember and what clubs and owners need to remember is that a lot of people's pockets are going to be hit. You know, there's a lot of people I know self-employed. And there's a lot of people I know self-employed have got season tickets who might not be able to afford those next season.
Yeah.
People I know, you know, there's their partners, their jobs are at risk and things like this, you know. So what we need to do is go, right, what's the fair cost of living for this country right now? Because I'm pretty sure we'll be in a recession. And how does that affect football fans? And what can we do to, you know, sustain their interest and get them here and almost offer an escape from the reality of the real world? It needs to. That's what football should offer. It is a game, and it shouldn't be treated as this big business that it is now. I understand why it is, but I think it needs to be a reality check across the world. And I think when you compare the Premier League to the Bundesliga, to the Spanish La Liga, you know, the ticket price is chalk and cheese. You can get a season ticket for Bayern Munich for 190 quid.
Yeah.
And what do we pay now? What, 650 quid? I don't know.
Yeah. We for our one, yeah, band free.
That's one of the cheaper ones. You know, so there's got to be somewhere someone's got to say, look, we can't just shut the doors down to football and make it this sort of, you know, elitist sport. It's not. It's a working class game, and it's a game for everyone, not just working class, but for everyone. Let's make it affordable. And I guess over the years, if one thing I can say about our owners is that they have tried where they can to make things affordable, whether that's been forced upon them. But, you know, on the face of it, okay, well, look, they have done that compared to other clubs. When you look at like Arsenal and Spurs, when they moved stadium, their ticket price was still quite high. So,
yeah, but I know they've had Champions League. Well, not Arsenal ain't real. Arsenal did have Champions League football, and Spurs did. So I think they made like aspects affordable. So it's like, we'll give you your band 5 cheapest tickets. Fucking going, and then like we're going to have.
The chances all right. You know, some people who I do know sat there, so it's okay. Like,
yeah. But there's only so many of them going, isn't there? And then it's like
to answer Nick's question. Definitely, I think you know, looking at where this is going to leave us, we need to really reassess everything, and not just ticket price to get through the door, but TV subscriptions, everything associated to football, the cost of football shirts. England was supposed to leave their Nike kit. This week, I think it was. There would have been an international break, and you can bet your bottom dollar that would have been upwards of 100 quid just for the shirt. I mean, at the start of the season, Dan, I went in a club shop, you know, and I bought Freddie the 4 nails top with the 18 on the shorts and the back of the shirt, and that cost 120 quid.
Man,
you know? Good for a 12-year-old strip. You know, that's taking the piss, you know.
And imagine, say Lily or something would have been older, say she's banging into football, or if you had 2 boys a similar age, imagine then you've got to buy a Freddie the kit, then you're obviously going to have to buy your other kid the kit. For people with a family of a few kids, geez.
Definitely, yeah. And so it's all that sort of stuff. Everything, the costs that are attached to football. Even when we go in there and we have a drink or a beer and a burger, the beers. How much of the beers are about over a fiver? That's
Nearly £6 now. I think they're £5.55 or something.
Yeah, a bottle of Sprite is like, was it £3, £3.50 for a bottle of Sprite?
I mean, especially like when we go. I mean, there's so where we are, Nick. Obviously, you've come down a few times, but we started out. There was about 18 of us down, weren't there, when we went down to the old reservation centre back in. And when we buy a round of drinks, it's not exactly cheap, is it?
No.
There's really about 10 of us in a round and things like that. So I've had this conversation with fans who support other teams, and you can easily go to a game and do like a £100, £200. It depends on what you're doing, but if you're looking at it by travel, especially even an away game, that's 30 straight off the bat. Then you got your petrol, everything. It's just we need to just reevaluate everything, I think, Nick. So
well, it's funny you should say that, Matt, because that was going to be one of my next questions. Is obviously doing what you do, you would be entitled to go to all these places on an expense, sit in a press box, go and get fed like the moose, get the food, get the all of that sort of stuff. But you don't. You go and buy your own season ticket. Why do you do that?
Because I love sitting next to Danny.
You wouldn't get my expert analysis, would you, throughout the game if you did that? So
that's right. I enjoy the West Ham TV videos afterwards. I always try and get my head on there. I think, to be honest, like being in a press box, that's working, and the people who are in the press box, they're not there just to enjoy a game of football. Of course, they want to enjoy a game of football, and they're all privileged to be there, but they are working. For me to go in and sit in a press box, I'm sure I've got a very good relationship with West Ham, and I'm sure I could, send them an email or ring them up and say, look, can you squeeze me in or whatever. I wouldn't do that. I've never been in that press box at the London Stadium. Actually, tell you, I've been in there just to do a bit of TalkSport radio after a game once, but I've never been in the actual media facility, so I don't even know what it's like. And that's just because I believe in, those guys who were there are working. I have been fortunate enough to be invited by some of the sponsors, and I've sat in some of the lounges and things like that on the odd occasion. But you cannot beat being a fan. And I actually there was a chance a few years ago, more than a few years ago, a conversation came up about potentially going to work for West Ham. And I remember it wasn't through West Ham at all. It was through a headhunter recruitment firm. And I said, you couldn't afford me. And it sounded very arrogant, and it wasn't trying to be arrogant. But what I said to it is, nobody could pay me enough to go and work for them, because I love being a fan. And what that means, if you go and work for the club, that is a job, and you have to be, I have to be professional as it is, but I can't be standing there sticking my fingers up because I'll get caught on Match of the Day, and that don't look good. But, you can still have that passion of being a supporter, and you can't have that if you're sitting in the press box.
Yeah, I mean that would mean they're buying your support, your downtime. Yeah, if you was going to go and work for the club.
That's the thing is that I love West Ham to bits, and I'll do anything to help them out. I did a program column for years for free. I was very fortunate that it opened a few doors, like by interviewing players, and I think the club realised that they could trust me. They still know that now, and that's always been something that's really important to me, is making sure that people trust and believe in what you're doing. And but what I'll always say is that I am a supporter first and foremost, and to be a fan, you can't. Everybody knows who's watching this and who's listening now what it means to be a West Ham fan. And when you get those wins, and when you get the ups and downs, and when we won at Wembley, and and all this, that, and the other, there's just so many good feelings. And I think if you're working in a capacity like that, that's just taken away from you. So that's why I've always said that. Who knows what the future will hold. Maybe I would work for a club one day, but it certainly wouldn't be West Ham.
What was it like, when you wrote in the program, when you got that first program? Because I remember when you done the first article, like obviously it went around the family, everyone got the copy, everyone was like, wow, seeing you in the program, your picture there. What was it like for you, obviously, going to West Ham all these years and opening up the program and seeing your mug in the middle of the
It was an honour, Dan. It really was. It was like playing for the club, and I was really grateful to Rob Pritchard, who's the program editor at West Ham. He's a lovely fellow, Rob. Really great guy, works hard, you know. And we had a meeting in the summer, and I said to him, look, I'd love to do it, you know, and he was like, yeah, great, we'd love to get you on board. So that's where it sort of came about, really. And I think the real moment where I had to sort of pinch myself was seeing a column in the final program at the bowling. That was the moment for me, really. That's when it really meant the world to me, to be associated to that football club on the day that mattered most to everybody. It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I was always grateful for it. Unfortunately, you know, there were things that, you know, I had to stop doing the program because of, you know, it took a lot of time out. And I think the first season when we was at the London Stadium, things were a bit tricky for the club, and, you know, I couldn't remain impartial to that in my job, and I had to be critical of certain things. I do think that there is a lot that's improved behind the scenes at West Ham now. We know that there's a lot of issues, but I think I'm at a place where I'm more content with the situation. So, look, it'd be one of those, really. If they ever wanted me to write for them again, then I would. And it's the same that if you guys ever wanted me to come on your show, I would. And if anybody else who's got a website or whatever, because I love West Ham, and that's what matters to me.
Well, that was time you Dan. No, go on, Matt.
Sorry, Dan. Sorry, mate. That was another question I was going to bring up. Now, fan TV and the mainstream media don't always have the greatest of relationships. There is sort of backwards and forwards, to-ing and fro-in between. And I don't never seen anything from the Mirror, to be quite honest with you. But, you know, you've got Talk Sport and The Sun, I think, is another one that gets dragged into the fighting. What's it like in the industry? Because you know, Matt, that we've had me personally, I've had a very personal argument with a journalist, and we had a good to-ing and fro-in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, like, you know, look, I see firsthand the effort and the time that you guys put in. You're doing it off your own backs, you know. And I've been there with Danny. I mean, in fact, yourself, when we was at Arsenal away, I think it was a cup game, and it's actually really fascinating to watch the Arsenal fan TV guys doing what they do. It's a proper operation. I'm not saying you guys are not a proper operation, but like,
it's nothing to that.
Got the money,
you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and for me, there was an appreciation of that, and there has been from day one with what you've been doing, because I've seen it firsthand. So I don't see the point in being critical about things, and I do. Often you see things where, particularly in the mainstream media, that whenever something new comes up and it's thriving, there's a bit of envy from some quarters, you know, and it's like, oh well, why didn't we think of that? But actually, for me, it's about collaboration. It's about embracing what we're seeing. I think fan TV is great. Some of it's a bit, all right. Sometimes it's a bit, come on, sort yourself out. And some of the people that go on it, you know, they're looking for their 5 seconds of fame or whatever. But actually, a lot of it is quite informed, and is people who care about the club, and their opinion should be as valuable as, you know, someone who goes on telly and talks about West. What difference does it make, you know? So for me, I've always found it as a great tool for content, and, you know, I think it's engaging. People have got their opinions on the game, and that's what I love. So I've actually enjoyed the boom of fan TVs, and I think there's a lot of good fan TVs as well. And I'd certainly say, and I'm biased, but I think yours is definitely one of the best ones, you know?
Oh, well, cheers, mate. Now, do you think there's a bit of resentment, though, right? Because obviously not yourself, because if you look at it, right, your journey, and it's the same journey as a lot of journalists, you know, you when you're in school, maybe you do some work experience, you write some free articles and stuff like that, try and get your portfolio up, hopefully get into university, do years at university, essays, dissertation, loads of right. Start off on the lowest, you know, bottom rung, work yourself up in the industry and build yourself up, and then you're covering football. Then all of a sudden you've got these people from all different backgrounds with no, you know, degrees or anything, that just come and get a camera and start talking into YouTube, and that's how it's sort of viewed.
Maybe, and I think if it is, that's just snobby, and I don't like that anyway. So, and I think, when I look at it, we're always looking for new audiences. I look at, like, Freddie, who's 12, he's year 7 at school. TikTok's massive at the minute. I don't really understand it, but there's so many platforms at the minute that people can engage. I mean, now's like a really fascinating time with everybody on lockdown. I mean, we've all just joined this, you know, in a family. I'm not sure if you joined it yet, Dan, but
I ain't got the invite, so
we've just joined this face party app, you know, and we're all engaged like this. How we're talking now, and it's brilliant. So I think when you get new platforms, and there's always an opportunity to grow audiences, and for those who do resent it, I'm sorry, but they're just being backwards. They need to embrace it and move with the times.
But the thing is, Matt, I think you answered it. You're 33. You're the head of the mirror. You've always been very welcoming to us. I remember us having a chat a little while ago about maybe doing collaborations for the World Cup and all of that sort of stuff and all of that. You've always been very welcoming, very forthcoming. And obviously, I don't even think that's because you're Dan's cousin. I think it would have been something that you would have embraced. But it seems to be the older generation that just seem to think, no, this is it. This is what's important. This is how we're putting out the information. And I've actually seen a couple of journalists that I think have to go with their tail between their legs. I remember one journalist, and I don't want to drop you in it with a colleague here, Matt, so please, if this is someone that you know or whatever, please, you don't have to comment or anything. But it was Wally Downs' son.
Yeah.
And he was making a comment about something. I think he was writing for The Sun. He made a comment about during the first season at the Olympic Stadium about all the trouble and everything else that was going on there.
Yeah.
And he just fabricated a story about a load of fighting within the crowd with stewards and stuff. And it was sort of like, it was really bringing West Ham into a bad light, as a lot of the press seem to like doing over every now and then when there's a fist thrown or whatever. And what it actually was, it was the Palace fans fighting over their drum. Do you remember this?
Yes.
So it was the Palace fans that had got into an altercation with the stewards over their drum because they tried to confiscate that fucking drum. And it was like,
that was up for Andy Carroll scored that worldie, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, I think it was, mate. Yeah, I think you might be right. And what it was is, as soon as he put it up, 10 minutes go by, you see all these comments from sort of Middlesbrough fans and Leeds fans and Tottenham fan. Fucking scum, they're scum, bloody, it's typical, that's what you expect and all that. And all of a sudden I said, that ain't West Ham fans, that's Palace fans fighting over their drum. And it started to gain momentum. Do you remember this, Dan?
Yeah, I remember it. And I remember your tweet. I remember you tweeting it. Yeah, I remember it.
It's interesting. Like, I mean, I know Wally, and he's a lovely fellow, actually. We were just out in Texas a couple of months ago together.
For the Royal Rumble, yeah.
Yeah. What I would say about stories like that, often, and being on the desk, there's been times where we have succumbed to stories that sort of accelerate on social media, shall we say, where something will be tweeted in a stadium, an editor will get excited about it and go, God, have you seen this? And sometimes there's such a rush to get stories up before actually, people have seen, and because there's X amount of people tweeting about it or posting about it on Facebook, almost take it verbatim. And I think, in Wally's defence, I know him very well, and he's a good journalist, and I think it might have been one of those situations where a story like that gathered momentum on social media, and it was inaccurate, but it got published anyway. And it does, unfortunately, in this day and age, that can happen from time to time. But
I understand. I think what didn't help him was the tone.
Put your hands up and be accountable. Because there are laws around it. There's IPSO regulations where any reader can force complaints and things like that. But if there are situations like that, first of all, I have a saying that I always go back to football and almost dressing room talk, but I always say to my lads and the team that I work with, just put your foot on the ball. We want to be the first, we want to be the fastest, but we want to be right. And if we're not right, let's not go with it. And I think that was probably one of those situations. So I think that's the danger of the new age media, where, like I say, things can get reported, and almost when you're on Twitter, everybody's a journalist, because even now there'll be stuff where, let's say, there's queues of people outside Tesco's or McDonald's, and people are, sharing videos of this. Suddenly, their work becomes the work that's shared on TV and online and things like that. So it's one
and
of
it
those.
gets taken out of context so easily, loads of times. Then it's so easy to take these out of context because you're just seeing this and you're just relying on what that person who's posting it is saying.
Yeah.
Is that
Happened the other day. I mean, I just shared something in a WhatsApp group, and someone said, "Oh, this was a scene in such and such," and someone went, "Mate, that was from 9 years ago," and I was like, "Oh, right, sorry," you know what I mean? So it can happen, and
I think the problem with Wally's thing with the article was how vociferous he was in what he was saying about West Ham. So it's like, I completely understand you get it wrong, but it's like he was the cat that got the cream, and he was like, this is the tool to bash West Ham and to have a real dig. It's like, you could say, if you was to say a few West Ham fans, bang out of order, violent, but it seemed like he wanted to use that to tar West Ham fans with that brush. And I think that's where he ended up getting the backlash that he had, So even coming back and saying, well, I'm sorry, but you're saying sorry, but you've still, tried to have a right dig at us over a few people that ended up turning bad. I think that's what didn't help with what he said.
Yeah, I think when you look at that season in particular, I mean, there were so many flashpoints, weren't there? I mean, we were in the thick of it. I remember the Watford game. That was something else, Dan. I mean, you was with me at the time. I was tweeting about it, obviously. I don't like to tweet during games, really, but at that time I felt compelled to, because I felt that, look, I'm actually in the fans there and I can see what's going on. And even then, people were saying to me on Twitter, "You're making this up." And I'm not, yeah.
Mate, there were so many fights in our area, weren't there? That season.
I was so upset, and I remember just looking around at my mum and just seeing the horror in her face, and I knew that moment she didn't want to go West Ham anymore, and that's what got me. I was with my son and his friend at the time, so not only am I looking after him, I was looking after him. And I remember that night I was on the phone to the club for a good hour, and they were very great. I've got to say, they were reassuring the media team at the time. They wanted to know what I'd seen and how they could help. And it was the same the next day. There were people on the phone to me for a long time. I was on TalkSport 5 Live, sharing what I'd seen that particular day. And I didn't think it would be as bad as that Watford game, but the Burnley game, that was just something else. Yeah. But I think the difference with the Burnley game was it wasn't fans infighting, and that's what made the Watford game worse for me. Is that there were our fans fighting each other, and that's what upset me. And like I say, since then, Dan, where we sit, it's a great little atmosphere there, and people are really good. I mean, we shake hands with everybody, don't we? I mean, a lot of people come up to you and they go, "Oh, we love the videos you're doing," and everyone's pretty nice. To be fair, I mean, wherever you go, there's always going to be a couple you think, "Oh, shut up, mate." But actually, where we are now, they're probably thinking that about me, but. Actually, where we are now, I think it's brilliant, and that's why I love it where we do. And I think most people come down to where we sit are like, "Oh, this is great." And the reason why we chose those seats, I was quite influential, I would say, Dan. Because,
well, yeah, you was. I mean, listen, let's be real. Like, you was massively influential.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been to the Champions League final in Berlin, and I'd sat in the corner, and that's an Olympic track.
Yeah,
and I was like, this is the best view. And everybody was like, don't know about this, but I've got to say, over how many years it's been now, Dan.
Yeah.
I'll let you down.
No, I'll give you that. But you need to give me some credit, because I was quite a vocal voice in that room, because I'm not naming names, but someone in that room no longer sits with us, was like fighting to make us sit up where Nicky sits now. He was like, "No, I want to sit up, but the view's not going to be as good. I want to sit up, what's up?" And I was like, and a lot of people weren't really saying anything. And I went, "Listen, I ain't bloody, coming here, getting a ticket, paying all this money, right, when I could be sitting 6 rows from the front, and I'm going to choose to sit right up there and near the back." I said, sod that. I don't care about the view. You want the atmosphere. You want to be close to the pitch. And I weren't having it. I was, and then Matty, you piped up as well, because obviously you was the first one to identify that. But yeah, I will take some credit in fighting for that.
Nick, when are you going to come and sit with us full time?
I've been thinking about it, to be honest. I like it where I'll sit, but there is very little atmosphere in terms of standing and singing.
I'll give you that, but like you say, it's just a bit like.
Yeah, I have been thinking about changing recently. To be honest with you, it's just the fucking admin that put me off over the last couple of years. I just couldn't be fucking arsed. But seeing as I've got a little bit of time now to have a fucking ponder of it.
I mean, we don't even know we've got to renew yet, do we? So
Yeah, we
No.
don't know what's the score with that.
That's the thing. The thing is, I think Ryan likes sitting up there, and I like sitting with Ryan. We've sat together for many years and all of that sort of thing. So,
that's what it's about, though.
Mm.
That's what it's all about for me. Is sitting with your mates and and your family. That's what makes going to games, doesn't it?
It's funny. Me and my uncle was talking. Kevin was round for Mother's Day, and we was talking about the whole renewal thing. And if they still try and make us renew in June, we was both in agreement not doing it, flat out. If they come out and say June, renew your season tickets for next season, it's done. I'm out.
To be fair, I'm going to step in a bit there because I don't think they're going to be asking for anyone for any money until they know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah, hypothetical situation. That's what we were saying, because we was talking about in the hypotheticals. Like, if they did that, if they do come, because they've known to put their foot in it with them renewal dates as well before, like last season where they tried to get us to renew 2 weeks after the season ended. So hopefully they got more sense. And like you said, I don't think it will come to that. I don't think they will ask us to renew. And hopefully they'll be looking at taking money off. Depends what happens. But if they did, I would flat out not renew. I'd be done.
Like, I would. I'll tell you why. Because unless it was like double the price, then I'm going to be renewing next season anyway. So what happens, so it wouldn't really worry me what division we're in or.
Oh no, but I think it's just a principle thing for me. It's like that's what it would be. It'd be on principle that I wouldn't renew.
I don't. To be fair, it's a completely different set of circumstances. We haven't seen anything like this since the war. They're going to be looking at it day by day as well. There's no way they're going to be turning around and saying you've got to pay by June when they've got fucking 10 games left of the season.
No, it goes back. I think that's a key point, but also it goes back to what I was saying earlier, that there will be a period of reflection. That how does this affect our supporters? And I know that a lot of our fans probably won't think that is the case, but I genuinely think that will be across the Premier League, where we look at what is the true impact of this, pandemic.
Yeah, they need to look after us. I think they really need to look after us. And I think, look, they've had a massive stay of execution with this in terms of the protests that were going on. They was ramping up. Now that's on a halt. So they've really had this time of quiet and no one talking really negatively about them. So they can really have, like you said, Matt, a period of reflection and then look, right, how can we do better? Let's go into whatever happens next going forward. We're going to try and do it the right way and do the best we can by our fans. And if they was to say money off, like half price on next season, whatever, something like that, I think that will go, a bit of a way. I don't think the relationship will ever truly be good or anywhere near that. I think that it will always be strained, but it can be better, I think.
Yeah, I think so, Dan. I think you're right there. And I think the reason being is that there'll always be the owners that, sold the club to a new stadium and to a stadium that's not perfectly built for football. And they were the owners that, unfortunately for them, what they'd said had backfired spectacularly. And it didn't take us to that next level. But having said that, I hope that this period they can really look at remodeling the club for what it is. And what they need to do is look at other successful models, not just in England, but across Europe and the world. And they need to really, do their
due diligence.
In terms of let's look at this club from top to bottom. What's successful? What isn't? What can we improve? What is doing well? What can we get more of? Perhaps commercially, I think they're doing quite well. We seem to have a new sponsor every other week prior to stuff, which shows good business, I think. But also, I think you look at the academy, and I've seen it firsthand in terms of, a couple of years ago, my son was invited for a trial there, and there were coaches there that just didn't really care, and they had about 60 kids there. It's just a giant fishing rod. Can we catch one or two? And I think really they need to look at how can we elevate players through the academy and into the first team. What's the proper pathway? What can we do with the training grounds as well? We've got 3 different training grounds, which is a crazy situation. When you look at Man City, you look at Chelsea, you look at Tottenham, everything's all under one roof and it's all state of the art, it's bespoke. Our club is there's too many fractures at the moment, and we need to be a bit more united. West Ham United, it needs to be, And I think there's a lot of things where we have made improvements behind the scenes, but then there's a lot from a football perspective that has to change, and it does begin at the bottom end of it, and it works its way up to the top. And
Well, to be fair, I was saying this the other week. It's like our youth team seem to be more better run than our first team at times. You know, when you look at, as you say, when you look at the training facilities at Man City, Leicester, and all that. And I know it's not all about having the poshest restaurant or having the fucking, the poshest swimming pool or whatever like that. But there's got to be like, I've seen Chadwell Heath firsthand, and I've seen Rush Green firsthand, and it's inadequate. And I think sometimes the owners, where they fall down is they're stuck between what they are. And they're not quite sure what the club is. Is the club a big fucking club that, have got the money to go and pay 50, 60 million pound for centre forwards? Or is the club a club still in development, like say the like of Wolves or Sheffield United or someone like that, where they need to concentrate more on, the infrastructure of the club? And that's where I believe where we are, Matt. We're a Wolves, we're a Sheffield United, and I think that big ground has sort of fooled a few people or duped a few people within the club to think, yeah, we're massive. We're a massive club. But
we're miles behind Wolves, though, mate. We're fucking miles.
Right. I think we're masquerading as this big club because we're sat in a big stadium with big capacity, and we tout these figures about our average attendance is one of the best in the country and this, that, and the other. But actually, what we lack is a bit of vision. And where is the future taking us? And I think when you look at the great West Ham United teams, we had visionaries in charge. And, this always came back to the youth setup and the coaching systems. When you look at the most successful teams in Europe at the minute, what's successful about them is they've got great philosophies. And I don't really know what West Ham's philosophy is anymore. And we was always proud of being that academy of football. We've been lucky to have a couple of players come through the ranks, but apart from Mark Noble and Declan Rice in recent years, there's no one who's really sort of commanded that third team place. We've always been a bit of a tell-in. We can't afford to be that anymore. We need to be a team that is going to create our own reputation. And I'll go back to visiting some of the teams in Europe. Barcelona. I mean, I trained at the training ground there once, and they gave a presentation about every team in the club, from under sevens to first team, does the same training, and they're all practicing the same philosophy. I don't see that at West Ham, And
similar at Liverpool as well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to achieve that, you need to have a proper director of football. You need to have a proper, academy set up throughout the whole, that reports into the first team manager and things like that. I don't think that we've been able to have that. I don't know too much about it, but I remember a lot of old managers that we've had would go to the youth team. I don't really know if Pellegrini did that. I think whenever he had the chance, he'd go to Marbella. But that's what, But what I'd like to say is that David Moyes is that he is trying to plug through these players. Let's give him a chance. Let's see what he's made of. And look, Everton had a great run of things. He had a bit of longevity there. Maybe if it's not Moyes, we need to just say, right, who's the manager we're going to trust? And if we have a bit of a wobble, we'll stick behind him. And that's the thing for West Ham at the minute. There's too much chopping and changing all the time. There's not enough solid structure.
Yeah, I've been a big critic of Moyes, as people may know, and not been a massive fan. However, next season, if we do stay up, I do think that he should be kept on, at least for that season, just for the sake of stability. Like you said, if we're too much chopping and changing.
If that happens, though, Dan, what can't happen is leaks. You can't have every time he's lost a game that, he's got 3 games to save his job.
Yeah.
Players know all of that, Like, that's the trouble, and there's things like you read reports where, certain players are invited in or spoken to by the board saying, what do you think of so-and-so? And that's wrong, because what do you think they're going to do? They're going to go and tell their teammates. It's like any other job. If I was to say to So my lads, X and Y is going to happen, but don't say anything. Of course, they're going to tell everybody, you know. So
you think that's where it's sort of coming from? The players going into, say, Sullivan and Gold, going, look,
necessarily. What I mean is there's too much uncertainty at times, and there's always there's a bit of a blame culture. If we lose a game, it's who can we point the finger at? You know, that needs to change. If we lose a game, it needs to be the team lost the game, or you know, it can't always be the manager's got 2 games to play themselves and things like that. He's our manager. Let's stick behind him. That's just my opinion, anyway.
Do you think there's any? Sorry, Dan.
No, go on, mate.
Do you think there's any truth in? I mean, I've got this fucking strange thing, Matt, where I just go on a tangent and I start filling in the gaps myself.
Yeah.
And I start to try and sort of work out what the fuck's going on. And last year, when Pellegrini came in, obviously is of a higher caliber, but I wasn't convinced because of, you know, the league he'd gone to. You know, he looked like he was winding down his career. Does he want to come back to the Premier League where it's, you know, stressful and all of that sort of stuff? Do you think there's any sort of, in terms of structure, do you think there's any sort of truth in what I said in this is how I feel it goes? I feel that he tells the club what needs doing to get the structure, and then the club start breaking it down as if to say, we'll say, for instance, he says, well, we need like 4 scouts. They go, well, we're not having 4 scouts. We're going to have 2 scouts. And, you know, we need a training facility that, you know, is going to cost like 15 million to build. And you go, well, we're not going to invest 15 million into the training facility. We're only going to invest 2. And then it gets to the point where the manager just thinks, oh, fuck this. You know what I mean? Like, they're not as interested, because that's what it seemed to me. Like, Pellegrini looked like he had some sort of philosophy at the start. You know, he wanted to get us playing better football, and this season he was a totally different person. He just thought it's just like he gave up. It was just, we couldn't win a game. The players weren't fucking playing for him. You know, as you just said there, every chance he got, he was fucking back off to Spain or somewhere sunnier clime. Do you think it's just, well, if they're not bothered, I'm not bothered?
Yeah, and I think that, like I say, that does filter back down to the players. And
yeah, of course it does.
And that's what I mean about having a philosophy where we go, right, this is what we want to achieve, and this is what we're going to set out to do. I don't remember in recent years where we've ever gone, right, what do we lack here at West Ham? And all you got to do is look in the trophy room. And we haven't won anything for 40 years. And go, well, hang on, let's make that our first objective. Can we win a trophy this season? You know, can we have a good cup run for our fans? That is what really killed Pellegrini as a West Ham manager this season. That cup defeat by Oxford, it was critical. It changed everything, because prior to that, we'd had a good run of games. We were brilliant against Norwich. And I know it sounds a bit daft. We only beat them 2-0, but we should have beaten them 4, 5, 6-0. Great. Yeah. And I remember
we had the Man United win as well.
And then exactly, then you follow that up by, you know, we played Manchester United off the park, and obviously it was a Man United team who wasn't quite in the mould that they are now, but it was still Man United, you know, and there was a great feeling, and everybody's speaking about West Ham. It's all positive terms about how we'll be in the top 6 this season and this, that, and the other. Then that cup performance, fuck me, I mean, that really sort of it changed everything, and I think that really made everybody realise that things are not quite right. They knew the keeper was dodgy, and suddenly there were a few kind of red flags being raised, and that's where the problems started to creep in. You got a £40 million striker. They didn't know what to do with him. It's like he's been completely isolated for most of the season. Now you put Antonio alongside him against that Southampton game or whatever it was. He looked good. Yeah. And then suddenly you think, oh, we can turn it around again. We beat Chelsea, and then we go and lose, you know, on Boxing Day to Palace, poor performance, and then we lose to Leicester, and that was the end of it, you know. And I've got to say, for Moyes, he came in and, all right, we looked like we was going to take things seriously. And then again, the cup is another thing where you go, we didn't quite take the cup seriously. You know, we shouldn't have lost to a second-string West Brom team who didn't want to be in the cup anyway.
Happened in his first time with us against Arsenal, didn't it? Obviously, we was at that game, the cup game against Arsenal.
That was a dire. That was a game that neither team wanted to fucking win.
Yeah, but we should.
And that's what it comes down to for me, really, is that, right, first and foremost, let's lay out where we want to be. If the fans were clear that we want to finish in 9th position, you know, and we finish 9th, okay, we've achieved what we've set out to do, but who cares about fucking finishing ninth? You know, the club do because it matters more financially. And again, when we go back round to what we were discussing earlier about the grand scheme effect on football, then cups need to be in the equation here because by the looks of it, cups might not even happen next year. You know, and for me, the FA Cup as a boy was saying that I always wanted to win, and that's a trophy I always want to see West Ham lift one day. So to reevaluate things, and there's always going to be money attached to stuff. It always comes back down to money. If we want the FA Cup to mean something, it's either got to offer some sort of Champions League playoff, at least, or it's got to offer a cash prize that's equivalent of finishing in the top 10. And that's when clubs will start to treat it seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Fully agree, mate. Fully agree. It's funny, you know, you were saying about that Man United game to the Oxford game. I was watching the post-match reaction I did, or instant-match reaction I did with Nick Tucker, you know, and he was like, yes, the revolution. It was, I think he said, the revolution starts here. I think that's what he said. I think that was what he was like, here we go. Like, we're amping ourselves up for a great season. Literally.
Yeah, should have been. But
really. But you see, their performance against Watford, and then he scored another goal against Norwich. He should have had a penalty, let's be fair, that day. And he's playing well. And I think what you've just touched on there, Matt, was an important thing. Is like we've got a £45 million man that we just don't know what to do with. And that's what worries me within the philosophy of the club. When I'm looking back at the club as a whole, that's what worries me. Is I think to myself, like, they're not buying around any sort of structure. They're just. And it was someone as well that said it on transfer deadline day to me. I think it was, I'm mentioning, fuck it, Sean Whetstone. He said it to me. So I said to him, like, what's going on, right, with the because that's how I talk to him. I just think I'm entitled to the information off of him. But I was like, what's going on? What are they doing? He's like, they're flinging around bids and they're seeing what sticks. And I took that information and I thought, that's not good enough. To be fair, it's not good enough to be, the way a club should be run. And like this goes to Sunday League, like what you were saying there about the youth teams, about training the same way and all that. When we was in Sunday League sides, when we had like 4, 5, 6 teams going, we had a first team down to a 6th team. If the first team manager was playing a certain formation, everybody would play that formation because it'd be, everybody knows what they're doing. There's no surprising when you get to one team to the next. Everyone's playing the same as the first team to be ready for that. And I'm thinking to myself, if they're just flinging around bids and seeing what sticks, there's no thought behind what they're buying. There's no identification. It's just like, and to be fair, I think Bowen's been a magnificent sign. And I think he's been a breath of fresh air. And I think so has Souček. But they're not buying players to build a team around them. Haller, he's isolated. He's stuck. He's been stuck for the whole season. I'll be very interested to know what he's been saying to his agent over the last 6 months or so. Because if it was me, I'd be saying, "Get me the fuck out of here," because my stock's going down.
Yeah, I wonder if the initial conversation was, "Look, you're performing well in Germany. The Premier League is the next step up for you. This is the opportunity at the minute." And this is the next stepping stone. I remember watching his first few performances and saying to Dan and people who sat around me, he ain't going to be here long. He's too good. Like, he's quality, Thing to say in a way. But what it comes back down to is our overall recruitment hasn't been right, which is what you're saying, because we tend to buy players and then go, right, where's he play? I remember when we signed Snodgrass initially, and he turns up, it's like, well, you're going to play on the right wing. Said, well, I don't ever play on the right, I'm playing on the left, We don't seem to know where players go. And that's what comes back round to what I said earlier about Liverpool and Manchester City. They identified those core positions that needed to be filled. How can we improve this team? This is how we improve it. And these are not just going around bids here, left, right, and centre. And that is definitely what happened, by the way. And a lot of it was, a lot of agents, everybody, man and his dog, who had any say in anything, were pitching ideas. Oh, you can have a bit of this, you can have a bit of that. Thankfully, we did manage to get 2 decent transfers out of it, because who knows what we could have got. But that scattergun approach needs to change, and it needs to be.
It's to take advice from agents. And
you can't do that because agents are business people. What do they want for money? They don't give a shit about where West Ham finish or if they win it. They know they can take their player out any time they want. You know, look at Pogba at Manchester United. Pogba doesn't want all this trouble. He don't want the fans to be thinking he don't care about the club. He just wants to play football. But he's got an agent, you know, probably wants to sort of move him around every couple of years. It's like Erling Haaland. You know, we talk about him joining Dortmund, what a coup it was for them. It emerges straight away that he's got a buyout clause. And now every minute, instead of saying what a fantastic start he's had at Dortmund, it's who's going to buy him next.
Yeah.
There's no kind of, that's the trouble with football at the minute. And hopefully in this,
I mean, that Pogba agent, I know, got about 22 million from the first transfer. So imagine if he goes back.
This is it. And for me, if you've got something, it's like selling, you know, just going to the shops and buying something that's got value at certain points. If you was to open a shop now that sold toilet rolls, you could probably charge $5 a toilet roll. You know what I mean? Like and that's probably what they're looking to do, is cash in while they can. And then once they've, you know, and that's why I always talk about, there's clubs who say, well, there isn't much business value buying a player over 30 because where's the sell-on fee attached to that? Hang on a minute, he was the best fucking player in the world. It was Lionel Messi. You go and buy the fella. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the trouble with football.
Yeah, it's like that. What was the fucking player we sold to Watford? Keena, yeah, Dominguez Quina. There was all this like the agent was trying to tat about and going, oh, Barcelona's interested, and he ends up at bloody Watford. It's like Barcelona were not interested.
They might have been that. You know, it sounds daft, but they might have been.
How'd you go from that's a big difference between Barcelona.
It's playing time, I would imagine, Dan.
It's definitely that. And it's where, right, it might be that you need to take 2 steps backwards or 1 step backwards to take 2 steps forward. You know?
But what I'm saying is, if he's good enough to potentially not even start, but to be in Barcelona's team, there's a lot of clubs in between Watford and Barcelona, right? A lot.
The Premier League, Watford play in the Premier League, right? And exposure they get, no matter who they play. Look at Ismail Shah. He's the man who's ended Liverpool's invincibility. Now, he's probably put himself on the map of every big club now, because they're thinking, if he can do that against Liverpool, you can bet your bottom dollar he can do that for us. So it just comes down to having that platform to play.
I think I think what Sancho has done in Germany, and I think a lot of young players, obviously it hasn't worked out for Oxford, but if you can go there.
He's done all right. I think more players will go that way, definitely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't harm their chances anyway. You know, it just comes down to some players are poorly advised, and others they've got their heads switched on, and they just get down and play football. And
I think Oxford's agent had a big negative impact on his career. I think he got into his head a lot personally, because I think he is the same agent as Quina and Sterling. And obviously, the way Sterling left Liverpool wasn't ideal. And I think he hasn't done Oxford any favours, to be honest.
Well, to be fair, the way Oxford went when he started that Arsenal game and you know, started them games that at that time, you know, you look at the way Declan Rice got into the team. You look at the way other people. If his attitude was right, he would have stayed there, I think. You know, even like Ngakia, you know, Ngakia has been called back and back and back. If his attitude was right, the fact that he never got back into the first team after that makes me think that his ego got the better of him.
But do you think? I think that's a little bit unfair for a young kid of his age. So obviously, like a lot of young kids are going to have.
It's the way that it is the way they react to things, Dan. I mean, I remember growing up with a couple of. I remember growing up with a couple of aspiring footballers. I had a good friend of mine that I grew up in school with, and I don't like to talk about him too much because I know that he's, you know, it's a tough subject to some of my friends. But he played for Charlton, and they used to tell me sort of stories about they went for England trials and things like that. He was actually French. So I suppose he was at French trial, but he had players playing with him at Charlton that went for England trials, and there was 2 kids, and I remember one of the kids was Jermaine Defoe, and another kid was another kid whose name I'm not going to mention, and the kid the first thing they done with them is they got them in to a training session, and they was talking to them, and the trainer smacked the ball as far as he could over to the other side of the field and said to one of them, "Go and get that ball." And this was like a first test. Now, this kid that was meant to be like 10 times better than Defoe, and I remember the kid. He was a very good player, because I grew up in the same sort of era as Defoe, and I watched him play for St Bonds a few times. He told him to fuck off, and as soon as he said that, they slung him out. Whereas Jermaine Defoe went to him, "Go and get the ball," and he run as fucking fast as he could and got the ball back. And I said to him, "What did they do with him?" And he said they slung him straight out. He said they told him to pack his bags and go home because he just didn't have the attitude. And this is the thing about football. I think a lot of it is if you can't do as you're told, and if you think you know better, you're not going to make it in the game.
Yeah,
I think that's speculation.
I think that certainly for me, when I look at recruiting people, I like to look at a person and how they're going to fit into the team. And you've got someone who's not a team player, who's not prepared to be committed and to work as hard as their colleagues. You wouldn't want to put them in that environment because it disrupts the others. And I think that's what it comes down to. Football's no different to any job in that respect. So
I think Ravel Merrison is prime example.
Yeah, you see so many players and people with talent. But ultimately, they're their own worst enemy. And
the thing with Oxford, right? And I think what you got to look at, he was in the international side, he was in all the way up to the under-21s, right? Or under 18. Yeah, again, highly rated. No one talked about any problems. Obviously, he played the Arsenal. Everyone was talking about in his post-match interviews how well he spoke and things like that. Now, I think he always, when I see him, he always come across, and I think we actually met him behind the scenes. FIFA. Yeah, really, he seemed just like a really level-headed, nice kid. But then, again, I'm speculating here, but you start to look at it like he didn't come across naturally arrogant or have any of these issues, but he's starting to get all these plaudits now. You can see the agent going, "Listen, you can go far, like you can go beyond West Ham. Like you're too good for you. I'm going to take you here, there, and everywhere." And getting in his head rather than if he'd have had someone good advising him, going, "Listen, keep doing what you're doing. This is the best place for you. Just work." Do you know what I mean? Like.
I think it's difficult, really, because some agents are negative and others are positive, and sometimes what you can advise to people just doesn't work. And who knows? There's a bit of who knows what really has happened there. I don't. But I just hope that for Reece Oxford's sake, because we're talking about him, I'd love to see him be successful. I'd love to see him come back and do well. And I think we always think that of our own, don't we? Anyone who's come through the academy, we want him to thrive, and he's a player who's, we all see the talent that he's got, and hopefully he can go on and become a big player.
Yeah, I just don't think that he strikes me as the player that's like Nicky's mate, and wouldn't have got as far as he did if he had that attitude. There's definitely a turning point somewhere, because he always, like we've said, always seemed like a nice kid, level-headed kid, and then there's a point where just things started to go wrong, and I don't know whether it happened to be we was having a really bad time of the season. There's so many different variables, and he is where he is. He's gone the direction of so many West Ham academy players. Badly.
I would imagine it would be the point that you get into the first team, because that's when a lot of attitudes would change.
Yeah, it's a lot of attitudes, really, because it's not only what you're like as a player, but it's how, again, it comes back down to how you fit within the mold of that team. And there's going to be experienced pros in that side, and there's going to be other young players, and it's how do you kind of fit into that cauldron, so to speak. And if you upset one person and they've got a bit of clout about them, they're not going to be having you, So, and I think that's the same everywhere, really. So, but I say there's opportunities there for young players at the minute for West Ham, and I think any club at the minute. I think Chelsea have proved that can happen this season. They haven't been able to buy anybody, and they've had a good lot of luck from it. But these are Chelsea sides that have been winning FA Youth Cups, and they've got good young players. And I look at Chelsea, and I think that's a good model for West Ham. I really do, and I hope that the reports are true. because we won't publish them otherwise. But I do hope that we want to have a core kind of homegrown identity to us.
It makes. I can see it being true. I can see. I mean, I think David Moyes has sort of hinted at that before, and I've heard the reports mention. And I think, like you said, if we can do that and get that English spine like he wants to do, then you've got a bit of structure to the team. Then you've got an identity. Then you've got something there where it's not just this player from this league, that player from that league, and and
I'm not necessarily against that. What the point for me about having a homegrown structure is that it offers a pathway to other young players within the club to say, look, if you work hard, there will be an opportunity for you. Whereas I think there's been such a closed door, if you like, to many players over the years. They think, well, actually, like your Sancho's at Man City, I might as well go to Germany because I'm not going to get in this team. And I think that's what West Ham should be a club about, where we do open opportunities. We can't say, realistically, we can't have a team of 11 academy players. It just won't work. We've all seen that happen in the past. We got smashed. It doesn't work.
It was like 10 academy players and Kevin Nolan in the middle.
You do need to have a team of players who want to work hard to win the shirt, and I think that's got to be true from top to bottom.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't think there's enough of that at the moment at West Ham. And as I say, it's got to change to be successful. We're coming to the end now. Got 5 more minutes. Dan, you got anything else to say?
Nick, he don't stop, does he?
Yeah. Well, that's it. You got to imagine if I was just like, like I said, it's great having you on. It's always interesting to get into the media side because, like I said, the media, it does get like a bad rep. But I have to say, to be fair, when you look at the reputation the media gets, YouTube channels and fan channels are guilty of the same things that you would criticize some of the media for, sensationalizing, clickbait, things like that. It's not necessarily, and I've been critical of the media a lot, but to be fair, like I said, it's not exclusive to the media. It's the economy we live in. It drives if you're not getting.
What I'd say to that point is that we want whatever we're producing, it needs to be captivating, it needs to be engaging. We don't want to just produce any old shit and expect people to buy into it or read it or watch it. It needs to be interesting. So, and that's what I always say: good stories will always get good attention. And if it's a bad story, then people just ain't going to want to read it anyway. So
I think that goes around there as well. Is that people are more savvy to what is a good story and what's a bad story because they see so much.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, people can see what's spurious and what's not, and I think it comes back down to even on the fan TV. Like certain people are like, hang on a minute, he's just trying to get a bit of attention for himself. Or actually, I'm going to listen to him because he's on every week and he talks some sense. So it comes back around to that really. But like I say, I mean, look, it's been a rough couple of years as a West Ham fan, but what's happened in the world, it really does put things into perspective. And I hope that once things do get back to normal, the club can actually go, look, where have we gone wrong? What's actually happened here? How can we put things right? Let's not be oblivious to it. Let's not think we're perfect. We're not. Nobody's perfect, but we need to actually go, these are the things that upset people. And how can we possibly put some of these things right? Not all of them. We're not asking for everything to be put right. That's probably, that's unfair and unrealistic. But let's show that we really want to be taken seriously, and come next season, whenever that may be, we want to be putting West Ham onto the right pathway.
Do you think do you think the main principal point of that, Matt, is to listen to an elected fan base?
I hope so, and I hope that there's enough people out there. I'd like to think of myself as one. I think there's enough fans from different walks of life who could contribute like ourselves, and I think we're not. I certainly wouldn't want to beat West Ham over the head with a stick. Never. I just want them to be successful and I know we can't win the league every year, and I know we can't win a cup every year, but I just want to see that the club's trying, and I want to see it from every level.
Yeah,
progression, yeah, and that's it. And there's going to be times where we might have the odd wobble and a slip, but if we can see that things are being run in the right way, and I always say this about every other club, you don't often read other chairmen or CEOs or anything like that writing columns or speaking to the media. They get on with their job. They leave that to other people in the club. That's where our club needs to get to.
And what do you think the chances are of us getting new owners within the next few years?
Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in a minute? I just think this recession that will inevitably will change a lot of things. So we have to almost be grateful in some ways that hopefully our club's going to be able to be financed properly, and let's see what happens from there, really. But whoever the owners are, if it's the same owners now, I hope that they can show some ambition to also fulfill it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, mates, and we'll have to definitely have to get you back on. I really wanted to get you on during the transfer window, like the January one, but it didn't work out between our schedules. So I'd love to get you.
Before we go, the only show I really want to get on is the post-match pint.
Yeah,
we'll have you on that, mate. No problem. We'll chat Dan off.
Get out of it, Charles. Listen. You can't just replace me for the B Lawless.
Get him off the quiz, Nick, and I'll jump on that as well.
Listen, he wants to
mate.
He would love to get me off the quiz. He would love it because he's sick to death of me winning all the time. He hates it.
I'll be honest with you, mate. I'd love to have you on a lot more stuff. To be honest with you, you're always welcome on, whatever you do, because we know that you are a proper fan, and that's what we like on our channel is proper fans.
He's also been a cameraman for us at Newcastle away last season. He was helping me film the fan cams.
He's probably been the cameraman more times than you've been the cameraman, and you're meant to be the cameraman.
That was a good weekend, Dan. I don't think I'm allowed to put the hotel room together, am I? After the
no, mate. That's it. That was it was cheap. It was cheap, mate. It was cheap in the end. But once this all blows over, we'll all have to try and get on an away day, get Nick out. We'll all a Northern away day and have a good time.
All I say to all the West Ham fans is, keep the faith, and then hopefully once we are back, let's really get behind the boys and hopefully start afresh as soon as we can. But use this period to, just value what's right in life and look after yourselves, look after your families.
I think I think that's what's sort of smacked me in the face. I think over the last few weeks, when you see the seriousness of what's going on around the world, and the fact that I've been fucking sitting whinging about VAR and and not spending another 50 million quid on a midfielder and all that, and I sit there and think, what an absolute prat I've been. Do you know what I mean? Like when you put it into perspective, because you don't know what's around the corner, and maybe, just maybe, when it all comes back, we'll be glad to have it back, and we'll appreciate it a little bit more. And vice versa.
Appreciate us, yeah.
Too right.
Yeah, Matt, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show, mate. I could be talking for another hour and a half, but it's getting a bit late now. It's nearly 10 o'clock.
Turn my son's room back to him anyway.
Oh, you're in Freddie's room.
Yeah,
poor kid.
He's got a better setup here. He's got some shirts, like he's got.
Nice. Oh, you're in his YouTube setup. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to have you back on, mate. You're always welcome back on. Dan, I'll let you do the outro this week.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, Matt, thank you very much. And
get him to plug his socials, mate.
Oh yes. All right, bloody hell. Yeah, well. Go on, Matt. Well, where can all the fans find? I know you have a lot of West Ham fans follow you and things like that, but tell the fans where they can find you.
Mirror Football, Daily Star Football. Follow those for your latest football needs on Twitter, Facebook. Share our stories and all that sort of stuff. And I'm at Matty Lawless.
And is there a Mirror West Ham account as well? Is there one been made, or I can't remember if it's some.
We've got with Mirror and Daily Star, got West Ham club pages that you can find on. There's a badge at the top of the page, and Facebook's. We've got Instagram. Mirror Football is really good on there as well. So just like I say, follow us if you can. Yeah, I'm sure they will, Matt. And no, thank you so much. And once all this quarantine isolation's over, we'll have to get together. Come around, have a few beers, and do some videos and stuff like that. So, once again, thanks, Matt, and we'll have you back on again soon. And one thing left to say, Nick. What is it? Is it? Are we doing this up the hammers thing? Up the hammers. We're trying to change it from come on your eyes to up the hammers. He's got his up there. So up the hammers then. Up the hammers. Oh yeah, come on your eyes. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.